I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Donald Trump is back making dozens of disgusting and disqualifying social media posts. Let's just get into what he posted. This stuff is just so horrendous and weird. So over the weekend, Donald Trump posted the following: "We made history. My Trump digital trading cards sold out in hours. Congratulations to the collectors. Thank you." And he's referring to the Trump digital NFT grift. I did a video about it over the weekend as well that you may have seen. If not, check it out. It's called "Could Donald Trump Be Using His NFT Grift Scheme as a Money Laundering Scam?" Check it out on YouTube, where I break down why it has the hallmarks of a money laundering scam. But here, after being humiliated and embarrassed with the announcement, Donald Trump is all in on these ridiculous, embarrassing, disgraceful to the country, disgraceful, of course, to the presidency, frankly, disgraceful to humanity, NFT grift trading cards. But this is what Donald Trump is thinking about over the weekend. This is what he is posting about. And then, of course, Donald Trump's ranting and ravings of a lunatic statements that he's posting on his social media platform. Here he writes in all caps, "Threat to democracy." Then he goes, "Is the radical left Democrats' new chant, like Russia, 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 before it, and all the rest. It is a total disinformation," this is caps, "hoax and scam. They are the ones who are the real threat to democracy. Remember, the Democrats' policies are destroying our country. They, quote, stink." This is all in capital. "Disinformation and weaponization of, quote, justice is all they got, but someday it will all come back to haunt them." Then he writes in all caps, "Make America great again." I mean, completely deranged, projection, dangerous, and the Orwellian doublespeak, of course, where up is down and left is right. And really, it's the Democrats who are the threat to democracy in Donald Trump's world, not the dictator who wants to overthrow the democracy. And when he goes, "Threat to democracy is what the radical Democrats' new chant is about. And that's just like Russia, Russia, Russia. It's a disinfo hoax and scam." Then he goes, "The Democrats are the real threat to democracy." And then he goes, "They stink." That's his quote. "They stink." I mean, how much of like a petulant child this individual is. So freaking strange. And then he posts right after that, all in caps, "They are going after me because they are really going after you." And look, what he's trying to build here, he's engaged in so much criminal conduct. He realizes that he's very close to being indicted. I've predicted indictments are coming around April and May. Preet Bharara, who's far more experienced than I am at Department of Justice analysis. He was a U.S. attorney, after all, in New York. Preet Bharara predicts that Donald Trump will be indicted in January. I just think based on some of the procedures taking place in the grand jury, that's just a little too soon based on the responses needed from Judge Beryl Howell, who's overseeing those grand jury proceedings. But nonetheless, I think there's a growing consensus that Trump is ultimately going to be indicted. And of course, the Trump organization, the entity that he controls, the main entity, was found guilty of 17 felony counts in New York State court about 2 weeks ago. And the Trump organization, Donald Trump, and all of his adult children are set to stand trial in a civil case brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James in early October of 2023, seeking at least $250 million in damages, as well as an injunction that would essentially shut down the Trump organization from ever doing business in New York, and thereby really from ever doing business again. Then Trump posts the following: "This The FBI's wild and crazy relationship with Twitter is absolutely a coordinated effort to change election results. Rachel Campos Duffy, and it worked, but they got caught. This is why people protested in Washington. Our 2020 presidential election was crooked, rigged, and stolen, and yet the Unselect Committee of Political Hacks and Thugs didn't spend any time investigating this outrage. Again, the January 6th committee did a very diligent job. In fact, they subpoenaed Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump wanted to show up and talk about any of these ranting and ravings, he is free to do so. He was free to do so. But what did he do? What he always does, which is run away from any forum that would require penalty of perjury testimony and actual accountability. He prefers to go on his social media platforms and to just inject disinformation in the veins of his cult members versus actually testifying about these facts. He was free to talk about these ridiculous conspiracies. He would have been cross-examined and he would have been completely humiliated, and probably within minutes of questioning, he would have started doing what he always does, which is plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. I mean, look, just look at what Donald Trump did in New York in the special proceeding that predates New York Attorney General Letitia James' filing of the fraud civil lawsuit that I just referenced a little earlier against Donald Trump. Trump was deposed. Of course, his first step is to try to file all of these motions to avoid his deposition. And then when he finally is deposed and you have New York Attorney General Letitia James shows up there, stares him in the eye and starts asking him the most basic questions. Mr. Trump, can you please state the appraised value of Trump Tower? Mr. Trump, can you please state the appraised value of Bedminster? Mr. Trump, can you please state the appraised value of Mar-a-Lago? Mr. Trump, can you please provide your valuation of Trump Tower? Mr. Trump, can you provide your valuation of Bedminster, of Mar-a-Lago? The most basic questions to ask someone. And what was Donald Trump's response? I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth. Even when New York Attorney General Letitia James filed for the preliminary injunction, alleging that Donald Trump was engaged in ongoing fraudulent conduct to appoint the independent monitor, Donald Trump didn't provide any evidence. He made one argument that the New York Attorney General didn't have jurisdiction to file the lawsuit, even though there's literally a New York Attorney General statute that provides for the jurisdiction. It's like clear as day in the law. And Donald Trump provided no declarations. By the way, as Judge Arthur Engoron said, look, setting aside the fact that Donald Trump obviously doesn't want to testify and he pled the fifth, why not have a declaration from an expert? Why not show me a declaration from any person who works at the Trump Organization? Why not have a declaration that shows another appraisal if what you're telling me is you didn't engage in illegal conduct? But what Judge Arthur Engoron said is Donald Trump provided not one iota of evidence, he said, not a single iota of evidence. And Judge Arthur Engoron called him out. And so this is Donald Trump's MO right here, which is lie, spread this disinformation, and then refuse to actually testify or to be held accountable at all. And then, of course, in the statement that I just read as well, he goes and he attacks the FBI, and he's attacking his own FBI. He's attacking the conduct of the FBI in 2020. He's attacking FBI Director Christopher Wray. He's attacking the head of the DOJ, the Attorney General at that time, Bill Barr, and he's calling them rhinos or Democratic operatives. I mean, look, as a pro-democracy, as a Democrat, we are not claiming Bill Barr as one of our own. The fact that Donald Trump is so out there, he's such an extremist, he's so dangerous, that he's calling Bill Barr and Christopher Wray, his own people, he's calling Democrats. And they were the ones now who wanted to overthrow him. That's what he's alleging. It's the most absurd, preposterous, illogical thing imaginable. But that is who Donald Trump is. Then he goes on this next post. He goes, "Our country is sick. inside, and that's capitals. Very much like a person dying of cancer. The crooked FBI, the so-called Department of Justice, and he puts that in quote, and the intelligence, all parts of the Democrat Party and system is the cancer. These weaponized thugs and tyrants must be dealt with, or our once great and beautiful country will die. This is the most anti-police, anti-law and order individual. And that shouldn't be surprising because this is the playbook of a tyrant. It's not about law and order. It's about what the wannabe dictator wants law and order to be, not any semblance of actual law and order. And again, as I mentioned before, he's talking about people who worked under him. He's talking about people who he was responsible for appointing. And if you don't follow the cult, if you don't buy the NFTs, if you don't go along with the grift, if you don't kiss his butt all the time and act like a groveling fool, then in Donald Trump's book, and frankly, in the modern Republican Party, because it is the MAGA Republican Party, you are a rhino. You are a Republican in name only to them, or you are a Democrat, or you are woke, or you are pronouns, or whatever they talk about now. You know, that's who you are as long if you don't support the cult of Donald Trump and agree with terminating the Constitution, or you don't think it's right to have Nazis over for dinner. That makes you a rhino today under Donald Trump's conception of America. It's scary, it's dangerous, and we need to call it out. It's why, as you know, here on the MeidasTouch network, we do a number of videos talking about the mass exodus of Republicans from now the MAGA Republican Party, people whose political party left them. And we talk about this growing movement, this pro-democracy, pro-normal, exhausted majority made up of former Republicans who they still may call themselves Republicans, but former Republicans, independents, people who aren't affiliated with any political party, Democrats, progressives, liberals, all under a pro-democracy big tent that supports America, that supports our institutions. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, never call MAGA Republicans conservative. Never call the Republican Party conservative, because there is nothing conservative about these posts that I've just read for you. There's nothing conservative about any of the statements that emanate from these people. These are the most radical, extreme, pro-insurrectionist statements that are out there, and conduct that's out there. And finally, of course, by the way, I've spared you about 50 to 60 other posts that he made. If I had to go through all of his posts, these videos would be 2 to 3 hours. By the way, when I'm talking about that, the posts that he makes like before noon, so all these posts he makes in the morning, I'm not going to read you all of them. I just highlight the key ones that are demonstrative of his dangerousness and his derangement. And then finally, after going through all of those posts, he's selling something. A great Christmas gift. Get my beautiful book, Our Journey Together, before it sells out again. Get your copy today. And it's just kind of a weird photo of it saying Our Journey Together on Air Force One. Well, there you have it, folks. That's what Donald Trump was doing this weekend. There were dozens and dozens and dozen more posts and statements. I'm going to spare you from going over those. But you see someone who is desperate, who is dangerous, who is disgusting. And frankly, anyone who supports that, anyone who looks at that and goes, yeah, that makes sense to me, I don't get it. I'll just say this. If any of them are watching this, there is this big tent pro-democracy party out there that values compassion, that values decency, that values values, that loves our country. We love our Constitution. We just want to go about our lives in a normal way and not have to deal with any of this radical extremism coming from MAGA that's frankly really weird, really dangerous, and completely against what's in the United States Constitution. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers. Thanks to your incredible support. Hit the subscribe button now and check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have lots of exclusive content you can only get at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. But most importantly, we are 100% crowdfunded. We are 100% independent. We are 100% accountable to you. We have no outside investors at all. So wherever you are in the world, if you like this type of reporting and you want to help out, check it out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. No worries if you can. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.